Today we're going to dive into a pretty powerful, you might even say radical, piece of wisdom. It challenges one of our most common habits. It's a simple idea, really, for getting more done and feeling a whole lot better while you're doing it. And it's all about shutting down two things we do all the time.
I mean, seriously, think about it for a second. How much of your brain power every day is spent complaining about something you have to do or trying to explain why something didn't go right? But what if all that effort isn't just a waste of time? What if it's actually making things worse? That's really the big question we're digging into here.
All right, so first up, let's talk about what we can call the complaint trap. And hey, this isn't about making anyone feel bad. It's just about recognizing a habit that, well, basically all of us have. A habit that can seriously work against us in ways we don't even see happening.
Now, here's a weird paradox for you. You'd think that complaining is for people who are, really struggling with big stuff. But what the source material points out is kind of the opposite. It often seems like the better off we are, the more time and energy we find to complain about all the little things.
So where does all this complaining actually get us? I mean, really, whether you're venting about traffic or your boss or that one project you just can't stand, the destination is always the same. It never, ever solves the problem. It doesn't make the work go away. All it does is trap you in a negative headspace.
Okay, so if complaining is a trap, how the heck do we get out? Well, for some answers, let's look to one of the most powerful men who ever lived. A Roman emperor who dealt with pressures we can barely even imagine, and he had some timeless advice on this very topic.
Just let that one sink in for a minute. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, he wasn't just talking about moaning to your friends. The really radical part, the part that hits hard, is that last bit. Not even with your own ears.
Yeah, that key word here is griping. This isn't about what you say out loud. Aurelius knew that the internal monologue, the silent complaining we do inside our own heads, is just as damaging. It just reinforces all that negativity and makes the burden feel even heavier.
All right, let's jump forward in time from ancient Rome all the way to 19th century Britain. Because this idea isn't just some dusty old philosophy. Nope, it's a tough, practical rule for leadership pushed by one of the UK's most famous prime ministers. Boom, simple as that. So direct, no wiggle room. Benjamin Disraeli's motto just cuts right to the chase. This was his rule for handling the absolutely insane pressures of leading a global empire. No complaining about how hard it is, and no making excuses for failures. Just do the work. And this wasn't coming from a place of arrogance. It was the exact opposite. It came from a deep understanding that the job of a leader, or really anyone with responsibilities, is incredibly hard. Complaining about it is useless, and excuses, they don't change a thing.
Okay, so we've got advice from a Roman emperor and a British prime minister, but why is this never complain, never explain thing so powerful? Let's break down the psychology of why it actually works.
So here's the central conflict, the trap our brains fall into. We have this illusion that if we vent or justify ourselves, we'll feel some relief. It kind of feels productive, right? But the reality is the total opposite. It's a mental dead end that just adds to our stress, and it keeps us focused on the problem instead of on the solution. When you boil it down, the true cost is huge. First, it just puts you in a negative mood. Second, it never, and I mean never, actually makes the work easier. The job still has to get done. And finally, and maybe this is the most important one, it's a massive distraction from what actually matters, which is moving forward. So this is all great, but how do we take this wisdom from hundreds, even thousands of years ago, and actually use it in our crazy modern lives, with all the emails and deadlines and everything else? Let's make this practical.
Look, this isn't just for people running empires. Maybe you're the accountant who has to do a really boring task, or the parent who has to coach the kids' soccer team on a Saturday morning when you'd rather be sleeping, or the lawyer who just got handed another case. We all have these responsibilities. The real question is, how do we handle them?
The actual takeaway here is a super simple two-step habit. Step 1, just recognize the impulse. You feel that urge to complain or make an excuse starting to bubble up? Just notice it. Acknowledge it's there. Then, step 2, redirect. Take that little burst of energy and instead of wasting it on words, point it directly at getting the thing done.
And that kind of leaves us with one last really big question. Just imagine for a second all the mental and emotional energy you currently spend griping, complaining, and explaining. What could you build or create or solve if you took all of that energy back? If you aimed it at what really matters, what could you actually achieve?